Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Helen Millar and this is Head to Heart Living, how to live a life less from fear and more from love. And I am so excited today because I'm joined by Gavin from Cacao Love, who is a good friend who I first met in 2015 and has been absolutely instrumental in my journey to working with cacao. I met him through working with other plants, and as I've mentioned in other videos, I had quite a reluctant journey to embrace and work with cacao. I was a bit like, what's chocolate going to do? And then because of Gavin, magic introducing me and then like totally getting it, um, that is how I'm able to supply cacao to all of you who work with it in this country. And Gavin is currently in Africa where he's based, which is where the Cacao Love empire is. And we're going to be talking today about all the amazing work that is possible in Africa because of the supply chain and the love of cacao growing around the world. And specifically, I think why it's really important to have this chat today is because the absolute sort of insane level of fear scarcity around abundance, money, prosperity at the moment that is like being churned out by the powers that, in the media. And actually that, money is energy and there is an abundant, never ending amount. And we're no longer on the gold reserve. So things are just created. And that can sound quite woo woo, but actually sort of the metaphysics of it are very true. And so this is going to be really exploring about how actually taking away any kind of stigma around having money or it being seen as something dirty, or I don't know, I won't go into all the things I cover in my video on poverty consciousness, but really looking at your relationship with money and how you can work with it and have more of it, and how spending at this time isn't necessarily a terrible thing to do because we're keeping the flow of the energy going. And that's exactly the same principles with permaculture, I believe. So it's enough of me waffling on. Hey, Gavin, how are you doing?
Doing really well. I love that introduction. You've given me lots of things to think about.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
uh,
thank you, and thank you so much for joining us today and bringing in that beautiful African sunshine.
mm,
So maybe could we start by you sharing a little bit about your journey with cacao as a plant medicine, like ceremonial grade cacao, and how you have ended up living in Africa doing what you're doing?
sure. So I first encountered cacao in this original form almost 10 years ago. And it was part of a retreat weekend where I was working with different plants. And during the afternoon, after a night of ceremony, somebody who became my teacher within one of these traditions gave me a spoon of cacao. And I'd never had it before. I'd never really eaten chocolate, and I had a remarkable experience. We were out in nature. I was on a bridge outside a tiny, like a river that winds through the outskirts of London, and I
I know
looked up
that
at this.
bridge.
You know that bridge, and my heart opened as I looked at the sky. And I could see the clouds dancing. I could see the reflection of the sun on the water, and it was a profound moment of connection with nature, and to be so close to the heart of a city yet to be so plugged into the natural world was an incredible and unforgettable experience. And it was really the cacao which allowed me to slip through that veil and to open my being to that reciprocal relationship with nature. And from that day I thought I need to explore this new relationship. And so a friend gifted me my first block of cacao, which came from Keith Wilson in Guatemala. And so I began to drink cacao each day. I got to know Keith. I began importing his cacao to the UK. And I was doing it originally to share with my friends. And it reached a point where Keith said to me he can't send me any more cacao because I was bringing too much of it into the UK, and there were more people around the world who wanted to experience it. And at the same time, it kind of become a job, a completely unintentional job of distributing the cacao, of splitting up the orders. And so it reached a point where I thought this could be something that I choose to do more consciously as a way of sustaining the projects in my life that I'm passionate about. And so from there, I started to explore different sources of cacao. So from the Organic Farmers Cooperative in Peru, who we've been working with for the last 7 years, and more recently with an indigenous Quechua family in Ecuador, in the Tena region of Ecuador, who are harvesting what's thought to be the original cacao ever cultivated by humans.
I didn't know that bit.
Mm. Yeah, it was a recent discovery. This particular strain of cacao was thought to be extinct until less than 20 years ago. But within these Quechua families, they have a person in each generation who is appointed as the guardians of the seeds. And they hold living seed libraries of all of the plants they use in the forest. And so while the rest of the world thought that these cacao trees were extinct or hybridized beyond recognition, they've been quietly cultivating these trees in Tena in Ecuador. And this is the first time that cacao has ever left the rainforest.
My I'm so excited and so like grateful that I have it in my home and that I'm able to share it. And in fact, I use that cacao to a friend of hers just bought her first flat, and she asked me to go and do like a blessing and a intention setting on the new home, and I used that cacao and we had it in these beautiful goblets, and it was really magical. And I just want to pick up because I didn't realize how similarly our first connection with cacao was. So you did a sound healing in North London, and it was with cacao, and I turned up because of the sound healing because I was still like, oh, chocolate, and somebody hadn't turned up, so I had 2 cups, and then like I was transported with your sound healing, and then afterwards I was cycling home through Finsbury Park in London, and the trees were like dancing with me, waving at me, like speaking with me. And those people who know my work now know I run workshops to help people connect and speak with trees. And then it was this, and this was when I was like, oh, I'm meant to do more than just participate. Like it really felt like a calling to share the medicine. And but with that sort of next level of connecting with nature, and that it has that ability to do that.
Absolutely. Wow, we've been on a very similar journey. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you for facilitating that experience, and all that you do facilitate. And I also think there is something so beautiful about it as a plant, because I find like it's a deeply feminine energy, and it's such a indulgent, rich, like it's not about poverty. It's not about like some of the other plants are like hard taskmasters. Like cacao is like abundant. It's like velvet. It's like luxury. It's like it is the antidote, I think, to like the last couple of years and like this fear and that everything's running out or we're losing everything. And actually I think it really reminds us of like the potency, the juice, and the the cyclical richness of nature. That yes, we go into the period where we lose the leaves, and especially in the northern hemisphere, we've just started the new beginning of the Celtic year, which begins as we move into the darkness. And and yet that is the fertile, the leaves fall to become the mulch for the new seeds to come through. Like nothing is wasted. And yet if you freak out and you just watch the leaves falling, you just go, oh, there's money coming out of my bank, or whatever that interpretation is. It's like, don't forget that we have to let go in order to receive. And that nothing is wasted, because as we receive cacao and we that finance then comes into you, into your stream. And I'd love you to share these amazing projects that you were so quiet about when we chatted, and you said, oh, we've done this thing, and I was like, oh my god, that's looks like so incredible. So could you share what you've been doing with with your community there?
It's interesting you touched upon that quietness around sharing some of the things that we do with cacao love and with this plant medicine, because for a long time I definitely had a reluctance to be so open with sharing what we were doing. And it was at the beginning of this year, I was in Sri Lanka with a couple of incredible musicians. They're called Pega and Jar, and they build sacred instruments. And I spent a month with them traveling. We were offering cacao ceremonies, we were playing music, we were offering sound journeys. And they almost gave me a missing piece of my own jigsaw of how I was living my life, in that they really celebrated the stories they told. And they used social media, they used technology as a way of creating art from the way they give. And that was really a big healing for me. And it was something that since then I've incorporated into what we do with cacao. And now I'm just much more forward than I was about sharing these reciprocal relationships. And I think it comes back to what you mentioned about the indulgence, the luxury, the pleasure of cacao, and the sensuality of living this life connected to abundance, living from the heart, and really appreciating these cycles. And so I suppose one of the first things that I'd love to share is how the Ecuadorian family, the Quechua communities who harvest this cacao for us, what's typically happening amongst the younger generations of these families is that people are riding motorbikes and they need to buy gas. And so what they do to participate in the money economy is they leave the forest, they go to the city, and typically they take work as taxi drivers. And so you've got people who come from 5 and 6 generations of shamanic plant medicine traditions who are leaving the forest to work for Uber and drive people around the city. And because of what we were able to do with this Ecuadorian harvest, we raised the investment to buy the entire year's harvest in one go from this collective of families. And it meant the entire generation of these young people could stay in the forest. They could earn more in the forest than they could earn in the city. And they're in the direct lineage of studying with their grandfathers, with their grandmothers, and they're maintaining, they're reigniting their ancient ways. And so money is fundamental to that, because by creating these reciprocal relationships with a plant medicine like cacao, by creating these sacred exchanges, we're bringing money within this cycle of reciprocity, of mutual fulfillment, and of pleasure.
I'm so emotional. That's so beautiful and so precious, and such a, such like love in action, right? That we, and it's not within the fear paradigm of that you have to do things that you resent or that aren't on your terms in order to get a buck. And
Sure.
that actually, if you do the inner work and the mindset and the energetics, like literally the world is your oyster. Like, I don't think this universe was created for us to suffer what there is to suffer, but we don't have to struggle forever. Like, there are ways to, tap into like the real internet of things, like the mycelium network. And do you know what I mean? Like, get into the nature's energy and then understand the cycle of abundance. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's so beautiful. I love it. I feel that this point on the planet, like this huge shifts we're going through, and anybody who's into astrology will know this like epic eclipse that we had yesterday. And rather than eclipses that last 6 months, like the effect of this, because of all the other planets involved with it, we're looking at like an 18-month energy cycle. And because we've got the South Node in Scorpio and the North Node in Taurus, like we're moving into New Earth. And Taurus is all about like our relationship with finance, with money, with abundance, with pleasure, with, sensuality. Like it's like reprogramming it like that. It's like shaking up how we thought about it, and like giving us the opportunity to totally up level and upgrade our experience that doesn't have to be at the expense of anybody.
Yeah, I think that's fundamental to this whole approach of living, of creating a life where it's not a win-lose relationship. It doesn't have to be at anybody's expense. And I think the more sovereign we can become in terms of how we generate the energy to sustain our lives, then the more everybody benefits, and the more we can really move away from that paradigm where our fulfillment is at the expense of somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like destroying or completely letting go of the power over and its power with.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't heard that before. Power with.
Yeah, yeah, I love it too. And so tell me, so that's like incredible, like that's such an incredible story of like not needing to be an Uber driver and being able to like stand in the lineage that you were born into and carry that wisdom through. And if anybody hasn't worked with like plant medicines, like they're not, I'm not an ad, like I think everybody has their own journey with or without them, but for those people who they can help and facilitate, like it's extraordinary. So for that to not be lost
Yeah.
is like one of the most important things.
Definitely. And especially in this time that we're in of this kind of psychedelic resurgence, where there are lots and lots of hybrid traditions emerging that are incorporating, I think, beneficial tools like psychotherapy with traditional practices. Although I do support those pathways, it's also even more important that the original lineages are kept alive. So we do have the roots to visit if we're called to. And so
Yeah.
I think the more those of us who are involved in the plant medicine communities, the more we can support the people at the grassroots level, the more everybody benefits, including the plants themselves, because these people are our teachers in terms of how do we steward the earth.
Yeah. How do we steward the earth?
Mm.
Absolutely. And I think you were mentioning, and I know you've got this amazing video that I'd really like us to see as well, like what this other project that you've been working with the permaculture.
So I've been in Kenya for 3 years now, and I was a year in Nairobi, and now I've been 2 years on the coast. And it's a very beautiful place where we live. It's called Watamu, which is a word that translates as the sweet people. And the people who live along this stretch of coast are called Giriama people. And so there are 9 tribes under the broader group of Mijikenda tribes. And Giriama are one of these people. Now, they originally come from the interior where the ground is very fertile and there's lots of forest cover. And so the ancestral farming techniques which people use don't work so well here on the coast. So they came to the coast within the last 100 years, again, sadly, to work in the booming tourist industry. And the soils are much more sandy. A lot of the forests have been clear cut, and so when the rains come, the water's leaching nutrients out the soil, taking it into the mangrove forest, and so year after year, the soils are becoming more and more depleted. And people are using their traditional farming techniques, but they're nowhere near as effective as they are in the interior of the country. And so when I became friends with some people in the villages, I realized that some very simple permaculture applications could have a huge impact. And so one of the things that we were able to do with Cacao Love as a result of the amazing work you do with your cacao, with your offerings, a way we can give back, is to fund a 2-week permaculture design course, which we did at the beginning of this year. And we shared the tools from the permaculture kit that are specific for this semi-arid coastal region. And as a result, the rains have come this year and we've had an incredible harvest where people have grown 2 years of maize in one growing season, which hasn't happened in the last decade in this area.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah, and a big part of it is due to these very simple techniques of creating liquid manures, creating swales on the land to increase the water retention when the rains do come. Maybe I can show the video.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I'd love to see it.
Welcome to Watamu, the beautiful coastal town that we have been blessed to call home for the last 2 years. The word Watamu translates to sweet people, and the warmth, welcome, and hospitality we've been shown in our time here has inspired us to set down roots amidst the mangrove forest that lines this magical creek. This year, as part of our Cacao Love Global Giving Pledge, we have continued to donate over 40% of our profits to community projects around the world, including funding a full permaculture design course for the villages surrounding our mangrove home.
Permaculture is a design science for holistic human settlement. It means that we create closed loop systems. Normally we design for human beings because other agroecological systems can exist and balance themselves without any interference. But for humans, we need to design ecologically sustainable human settlements so that we have created closed loop systems for people to live and achieve regenerative livelihoods. Which leads to right livelihoods.
Maize is the staple crop grown in Kenya, and the combination of clear-cutting forest, soil depletion, and water runoff has led to smaller and smaller yields in recent years. But by using a combination of techniques from the permaculture toolkit, including building swales, composting natural waste, making liquid manures, and creating natural pesticides, the families who attended this training have harvested a bumper crop this season.
My mom, she's very, very happy today. To Gavin and Diana. My mom said she's very more happy again to know many things like manure. She knows very well how to make manure. That's why the time the rain was coming in that time, she was planting very many maize and she gets more maize. It's because of the manure you teach them.
We are grateful for the opportunity to be part of this close-knit community, and will continue to document our permaculture adventure here on the magical Kenyan coast. Thank you, Cacao Love family, for trusting our initiative and for continuing to support this project that is truly an offering from our hearts.
You live in paradise.
Oh, we do.
So-
So thank you, Helen, for the work you do with Heart Healer Cacao, because it's really these offerings that make this possible. If it wasn't for people like you who can share this medicine with your community, we just simply wouldn't have the abundance to be able to give back in such a beautiful and meaningful way. So I'm really, really grateful for you and everything you do to support this project.
Oh, well, it's just, I didn't know about it. So it's such so joyous to know that, what I do and how my relationship with cacao has grown and how I found my own way with it. Because when I started, it was, before 2020, I was doing these big ceremonies in London each month on a different theme, working with the astrology and then with the lockdowns, and then bringing it into coaching people. So people were, receiving the cacao, and then we were joining together through Zoom and coaching and using it as to come into our heart to really allow everything else to be out of the space. And it's, it's just so, and I ran a community online every week for 2.5 years, and everybody joined with a cup of cacao to open. There's just so many ways that it's found its home and its way of working with people. And I have clients who have it before bed for dream work, and I have clients who have it in the morning instead of coffee. And it's such a beautiful medicine, and it's wonderful to know that everybody's pleasure here is connecting into all these communities around the world in very different places.
What a blessing to be able to share in this way.
Yeah, so grateful.
I love what in that video, Priscilla, who was the first woman who spoke, she was the teacher who delivered the training. She's from Western Kenya, but she knows a lot about the semi-arid coastal climate. And she put a lot of emphasis on the creation of closed loop systems, what you mentioned in the video. And I love that idea, connecting back to what you were talking about, when we see the trees fall. And if we just see that the leaves fall from the trees, and if we just see that one segment of the cycle, it might look disastrous. But in fact, it's a closed loop system. And so what's surplus here becomes an input somewhere else in the system. And I think that's something that's been able to permeate what we do together, because we can withdraw enough money from our project to support a beautiful life, but there's more. And so as a result of that, we can create an input somewhere else, which then, for example, here in this community means that people don't need to work for 50 pence an hour to be a cleaner of a hotel, because they can now grow enough food to support their family and next door's family too. And so again, it closes that loop where we're coming closer and closer into harmony with the natural cycles of the earth.
Is there anything else? It feels like a natural completion. Is there anything else that you want to share or allow the viewers to hear about that you're up to, or what's coming next?
Yes, so maybe I can just share the seeds of the next part of this permaculture project. Is one thing that we realized when we organized this training is that many of the people who attended haven't been to school for 50 years and didn't attend school beyond 10 years of age. And so even though there was lots of practical work included in the course, there was a lot of theory. And I think the way to make this training and this information even more shareable is to create audio documentaries and short 1-minute videos that can be shared on WhatsApp. And so the next part of this project is we're going to invite the teacher to come back, and we're going to make a permaculture design course that can be shared virally on WhatsApp throughout the entire coastal region. So we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And which I'll link below, I did a great interview with a permaculture, amazing woman who years ago sort of left corporate life and packed up her family and went off and traveled around Australia and learned permaculture principles and lived like that, and then took it into creating conscious community and sharing permaculture principles. And what I find is so interesting about what she was doing then and is continue to do what you're doing and what's happening in the UK is this like huge surge in allotments and people growing their own food and looking at like supply chains for the first time and wanting to move in huge droves away from the big supermarkets, and really the beauty of eating your own organic food, and that has become huge here. And so I think there is a rapidly increasing appetite to understand and to empower ourselves with like how to feed ourselves, which is talking about sovereignty, like such a gift you can give yourself.
Absolutely.
I've got really into foraging. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be on the planet, I believe. It's a really exciting, juicy time to come back and really connect with all of the abundance of nature and realize that we are nature, and that more that we can form that connection, the more we nourish and heal ourselves, like forest bathing and all of that. But it can just be walking in your park, touching a tree, you know, having a paddle in the sea or a swim. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, and please, I'd love to hear, maybe you want to come back and share when you've got your seeds project up and tell us how that's gone.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd really love to. And maybe we can share your Heart Healer page, so people who are interested or inspired and would like to experience cacao for the first time can connect with the medicine you share and be part of this story, and to know that every time somebody buys Heart Healer cacao, they're not only investing in their own pleasure, in their own well-being, but there are also ripples that might not even be visible straight away, but have a direct impact on this sovereignty movement, on this revolution of the heart that's taken place in so many regions of the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. The link's below if you would like to get your own cacao, and you can choose or try one of each of these beautiful sources and the different projects that they're supporting. And also to, if we haven't spoken about sort of the science of cacao and how it works on your body, your mind, your like spirit, the 3 levels that it can facilitate. But that information again is on my website. If you look under the cacao section, you can read and get really excited about how good it is for you. You know, no guilt needed around any food, but no guilt needed around cacao especially. And I have, for those of you who are in the UK, I have a cacao ceremony happening in person on the 18th of December, just before the solstice. And I have lots of online offerings and coaching, and anything is on the website, or you can drop me a free call and we can have a chat if you're looking for some one-to-one support. So that, a big love to you in Kenya, and to all the people and who help make the cacao travel to us. Deeply appreciative of that. And you for your time and joining us today, and sending you so much love. And lots of love to everybody watching. Please, I'd love to know what your main takeaways are from this conversation. Please put them in the chat. If you've got friends, maybe you're a big cacao lover and you're all over this, but you've got friends who are a bit like, they're still in the where I was, like, oh, it's just chocolate, who want to hear some of the magic. Or maybe you've got friends who are really struggling with like the poverty consciousness lack narrative that's going around at the moment, and you feel that some of the energy that we're sharing here today might help them shift that mindset. Do feel free to subscribe to the channel for more juicy conversations like this and videos. There's at least one a week coming out. And so, yeah, the usual, like, subscribe and share if this works for you. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Gavin, and lots and lots of love to all your endeavors. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you.